Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications. Hope everyone's having a great day today. It's January 27th, 2020. Here in Atlanta, it's overcast, kind of mildly drizzly, kind of cold. And I know you're not looking for the weather report in Atlanta, but kind of reminds me of the old truth, right? Well, just because it's winter today, who's to say it's not going to warm up in a few weeks and become spring, right? And then summer, right? And so if you're in Atlanta, you're dealing with the overcast and the drizzly now, and eventually in a few weeks, maybe it's going to, or a month or so, it's going to warm up. And of course the flowers are going to come out. And well, then you got to deal with that yellow stuff, pollen. Then you got to sneeze and you're going to cough and your eyes are going to be all watery and so forth. And then it gets really hot. So, everything has its opposites, right? And then of course, if you're in the Southern hemisphere, you're dealing with summertime right now and sweltering heat, and but you got cooler days to look forward to, right? I mean, Benjamin Creme's master even talked about that in terms of karma, and how that all of us need to be detached and remain detached when it comes to the blows and the gifts of life. Because just because things are difficult today, who's to say that right around the corner aren't going to be easier times or the best times of your life? And then, of course, unfortunately, it's the other way it works too. Just because you're having a great year this year and it's the best year of your life, you're in love, you're, not having any financial problems, everything's just rosy, right? Well, you'll have bad days coming your way. Not to worry, my saying is, it is what it is. My daughter started saying this, and I think this is funny. Yeah, it'd be like that sometimes. So it's the same thing, I guess, So if your parents didn't tell you you're going to have bad days, well, let me be the first to tell you, yeah, you'll have some bad days coming your way. Not to worry about that, right? Now, I'm going to tie it all in to kind of what I've been seeing in the world in terms of, politically and ecologically and so forth. But I was watching this article on CNN, and the guy was talking about globalization and how globalization today is starting to look different than it did just 5 or 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And to kind of sum it up, he was saying that countries that were normally extroverted in their trade policies or foreign policies are becoming much more introverted. He started talking about India, then he talked about some other countries as well. And of course, the United States has had its moments where they've been, more isolationist in their view, depending upon who the president is, and and that's a reflection of the people's at that time, right? Because they elected him into power. But and how today is no different, right? Well, one of Trump's major campaign slogans was, put America first, and so that's becoming kind of the way that people here in the United States are wanting the United States to kind of have their foreign policy. Just worry about number one. Don't worry about anybody else. That I'm all right, Jack. Just don't worry about them. We'll worry about us. And it'll be okay. That kind of deal. And then if you look at it, in terms of activist groups and races and even down to individually, I've noticed a trend toward becoming much more of an isolationist type of view. Selfish, if you want to use the word or whatever, right? Individualistic in a way. Where you look at activist groups, groups like even climate change, and how clear it is becoming between those who are against climate change and those who or don't believe that climate change is even a problem, and those who are very active toward trying to solve that problem. It's becoming very, very clear, but the line between the two groups, right? And then you look at the racial groups here in the United States and how that is becoming, even as you could think that it wouldn't get any sharper, right? It's becoming even a sharper edge. And then you have the Me Too movement and so forth, which all these different types of groups that are trying to assert their own voice for change have a legitimate purpose, what they're doing, right? But they're probably, and most of the time that I've seen, is they have a very isolationistic view toward their own, voice, or toward what they're working toward. Now, and then if you drizzle it down to, individually, that I've seen at work and even with myself from time to time, where it's kind of like this malaise kind of attitude where it's just almost just kind of throw your hands up like, you know what, I don't care anymore. Just, I'm just going to worry about me. Let the problems of the world be the problems of the world, man. It'll be all right. And the problem with that is that the major problems of the world, like peace and saving the environment, of course, are still there to be tackled. Nobody's really working on those problems, by having that attitude. And I remember Benjamin Creme's master talking about this being something that's going to happen in the world, where people are going to become much more introverted, and nations will be much more introverted toward the problems of the world and withdraw, really is what it is. Now, the flip side of it is what happened yesterday here in the United States with Kobe Bryant, who, if you're not familiar with what happened, if you don't live here in the United States, Kobe Bryant was a very famous professional athlete. He played basketball for the LA Lakers, and he died suddenly in a helicopter crash. And I was amazed and it was very unexpected, the emotional outpouring toward this professional athlete. And as somebody had told me that he was going to die unexpectedly next week, and what do you think the reaction of the people would be? I would have never expected this type of this emotional reaction, and how people are crying and stuff. And I even was reading some posts that some of my friends and coworkers were putting up on Facebook, and some of these people, you would never have expected them to have this type of outpouring of emotion. We're talking about how they were crying and so forth, and and how sad they were and everything like this, and it was a tragic thing, right? But it takes those tragedies sometimes to kind of rock us out of our world, and I think more of what people are doing in terms of their catharsis that they're feeling is more of their own emotional catharsis, their own emotional kind of build-up, because we're becoming so withdrawn from other people, and then when something like this happens, it just wakes us up. You're like, oh my gosh. And so, like I said, if you would have seen some of the posts, and if you knew the people the way that I knew them to be, right, you would have never expected them to have that kind of emotional reaction to a death of an athlete the way that it did. Celebrities die all the time, but yet this was different for them, and I don't know what made it different other than it was just an accident. But how that has really rocked a lot of people out of their situation, So, and then to tie it kind of into what's going on in the world today politically, right? How clear and sharp, razor sharp, that edge is that's going on between the left and the right politics in Washington is just I've never seen it like this ever in my life, as divided as the politics have always been in this country. And even if you look at it historically, it was very divided during the Civil War, right? I mean, the country broke apart for a while. But yet, even on the battlefield, there was a civility that we don't see today between the Southerners and the Northerners, right? Soldiers. That they would actually sometimes call off the whole battle for a second, so two brothers that hadn't seen one another in years could walk across and pass information about what's going on with the family and so forth. I mean, it's just, you don't see that kind of thing today, and there's nothing. There's no civility. There's no compromise. There's no listening between these two majorly powerful group, between the left and right politics over something as simple as, did the president break the law or not? You know what I'm saying? And it should be pretty clear based on the evidence. But even then, it's razor sharp. And nobody's listening to the other side. And when you hear the arguments from the left or hear the arguments from the right, I don't know who they're talking to. You know what I'm saying? There's nobody listening, right? Nobody's changing their mind, right? And that's what we're seeing today. That's the sword of cleavage. And it's the energy of the Christ that's flowing out into the world at tremendous potency that's having this happen. Now, the good news is that it's not going to last like this forever. There's a reason why it's doing this. It's to bring everything to the surface, all the corruption to the surface, all our own individual, tendencies and isolationist tendencies to the surface, so that we can deal with it. Because this is not where we're headed. We're not headed into more isolationism. We're actually headed into the opposite side. which is cooperation, brotherhood, right? Maitreya says we're one family. And yet, are we living like that? That is the question. No, we're not. We're living very isolationist, right? We're living as 7.5 or 6.5 or whatever it is, billion individuals, and not as one family. That's the problem. Now, Maitreya is on TV, not speaking in a way that is really being recognized as anything special as Maitreya. You know, and I even touched on the fact that he might not even be being asked any questions that are leading people in his answer, you know, giving the answers that he's giving are leading people to believe that he could even be anything special but other than just somebody on TV. But this situation's not going to change either. And sooner or later, there's going to be a journalist that's going to ask him a question that he's going to actually answer in a way that people are going to go, oh my gosh, I had no idea that was who that was, right? And once he starts ratcheting up the message and the sense of urgency about the problems that are in the world today, and that we need to let go of our differences for just a moment and just tackle these two major problems. The need for true and lasting peace is the most important thing that we can do. We cannot do anything until that is solved. And the entire fate of the human race depends on whether we can do that one thing. So that's how clear that priority is going to be. And the only way to do that is to create justice in the world so that every single man, woman, and child on the entire planet can feel like their life matters. What is wrong with that, right? I mean, it seems like a really good thing, but people still argue against that whole thing. But, you know, that they have health care, that that health care need can be met. And of course, the food, you know, they'll just have something as simple as food and clothing, right? And then people can feel fulfilled. They can feel like they actually matter, that they actually have a creative purpose here on this planet at this time. And that will bring about justice, which will start to ease the tensions in the world. And this isn't just in terms of individuals, but this is also in terms of nations. That there are nations that feel isolated based on their location, based on the fact that they don't have as many resources as other countries do. And that's where the tension's coming in. Those resources were put there by the universe, by Mother Nature, by God himself, whatever you want to, Allah, whatever name or face you want to put to the universal God, right? That universal principle that created the entire cosmos, right? Those resources were put in our planet for everyone to use so we could all have a life, you know, not just so that a certain small group of people can have it and other ones can't, you know what I'm saying? But that's the way that we live. You know, and it's not, that situation is getting ready to change for the better. But the thing that Maitreya will be speaking about in greater urgency and greater volume in the next, you know, I don't know, you know, a few months, year, whatever. I don't know how long. Hopefully it's just a few days, but I don't think it's going to be that quick. But, you know, is that we are all one family. As Maitreya put it in this peace rally in 2003, keep your eyes on the prize, and the prize is humanity. That is the only thing that matters, and humanity is peace. We should be about true and lasting peace. That's the only thing that matters. Then we'll be able to tackle the environment. Then we'll be able to tackle all these other issues and problems that we've been dealing with for centuries and centuries and centuries. But we must put humanity first. And that's what we're seeing now. Right now we're all putting ourselves first and not humanity first. But we're in for a change. Anyway, hope it helps. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.